بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah, and may peace and blessings be upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. It is another episode. It is regarding the lecture which has been given by Sheikh Albani rahimahullah around about 40 years ago, and which is to do with the Tasfiya Wa Tarbiya, and purification and cultivation. And these are the methods that the Sheikh had seen to be the methods by which we could come back to the triumph times where our religion would be the religion that would make us above all other nations through purification and cultivation. And the Sheikh had started his talk by the hadith which is إذا تبايعتم بالعينة وأخذتم أذناب البقر ورضيتم بالزرع وتركتم الجهاد سلط الله عليكم ذلا لا ينزعه عنكم حتى ترجعوا إلى دينكم. If you trade in Ina and hold on to the tails of the cows, and you satisfy yourself with agriculture and you abandon jihad, Allah will impose upon you a humiliation which will not be lifted until you go back to your religion. And the Shaykh here is talking about the medicine or the way to go back to the religion, because he was that phrase which is very important, that is the remedy or the cure for the diseases that had struck this ummah is to go back to the religion. So how to lift off or remove this humiliation which is upon us, and we could see it since the time of the Sheikh Albani and before him and after him. This is the humiliation, and that the ummah is in a weak state, a weak status, a status that the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can go into the lands of the Muslims without any hesitation, no fear whatsoever. So the cure for that is to go back to the religion. So that was the last thing that we have covered. So we're going to be reading from page number
28.
Now,
thus, the only cure is a return to the religion. However, this religion, as everyone knows, and in particular those who study fiqh, is differed upon.
Those who do not study fiqh, because here, those who are knowledgeable, for those who are knowledgeable in religion. It's not just fiqh, hadith and fiqh. So for those who are knowledgeable in religion, now,
is differed upon with the severest of differing.
So I'll read it again.
Thus, the only cure is a return to the religion. However, this religion, as everyone knows, and in particular those who are knowledgeable, is differed upon.
Knowledgeable in religion. Differed upon, yes.
Is differed upon with the severest of differing. This differing is not only restricted to a few subsidiary issues, as many of the writers or scholars say and think, rather it has exceeded the subsidiary issues and has reached the issues of aqidah.
Okay, it has nothing to do with now with branches as well. Is, for example, the ruling of such thing, and what is it, halal or haram, or for example, whether to pray this way or that way. It is even gone to the roots of Islam, that is the aqidah upon which the whole of Islam relies upon. Now, so, yes.
So, in one place, there is a big difference between the Asharis and the Maturidis. In another place, there is a difference between these, the Maturidis, and the Mu'tazila, not to mention all the other sects.
Right, so here we're just going to give a short biography about, or just a definition for those who had mentioned. So he said, well, the Ash'ariyah and the Maturidiyya, and he mentioned the Mu'tazila. So we mentioned them actually in the order which they came out and they emerged. Those are sects and groups. They are Muslims. Mu'tazila, those are the ones who are the followers of Wasil ibn Ata. Also, they are followers of Amr ibn Ubayd. Wasil ibn Ata, he had isolated himself in the circle of whom? Ya Abu Khawla. Who is that circle? He had isolated himself and he made his own circle. Anybody? No? know who is that scholar. Put your finger up again, I'll get it down. No, you don't understand. Wasil ibn Ata is the person who had started the Mu'tazila. Mu'tazila means to isolate yourself. What was the thing that he had done to isolate himself? In which lecture? Abu Musa, please louder. No, but yes, in which thing, but where was he? Was he listening to which circle? Who is that scholar that he had isolated himself from him? This is to do with Rasul al-Sunnah, subhanallah. Naam. Hasan al-Basri. So the person who doesn't come to the classes answers, and then you come to the classes you don't answer? Subhanallah. Al-Hasan al-Basri. And Hasan al-Basri was asked a question, and then the question of Abu Musa is what? Is to do with what? What was the question? He said that a person who has done kabira, a major sin. So, major sin, the proper answer, which Hasan al-Basri had said, that is, that he is in the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Either he will forgive him, put him in paradise, but if he does not forgive him, he will punishment, then he will go back to what? To paradise. But Wasil ibn Ata, he said what? He's what? Like, tell me how he said exactly. Manzila where? When? He will treat him in this dunya, manzila bain al-manzilatayn. So we can't say he's a kafir, we can't say he's a Muslim. But in the hereafter he is kafir in the hellfire. And that's why he was made i'tizal, his own answer. And that's why some people had followed him. Manzila bain al-manzilatayn. Camps. You remember? It was camps. Not even, we can't treat him Muslim, we can't treat him as a kafir. But in the hereafter he's what? He's a kafir. That's the Mu'tazila. So from their followers as well, from their names, which are known to be the head of this group, is called Amr ibn Ubayd. Those people, they affirm the names of Allah in contrast to the Jahmiyyah. The Jahmiyyah, who are the ones, followers of Jahm ibn Safwan. Jahm, he is a person who had followed as well the Sansaway. If you remember when we talked about the Qadar, he had made a person to be Jabri, but he had denied names and attributes. And that is why the scholars, when they, for example, count the groups of Muslims, they don't count what? Jahmiyyah to be one of them, because they have denied the names of Allah and the attributes of Allah. Mu'tazila came to refute as well their argument. They believe in the names of Allah, but they don't believe in the what? In the attributes of Allah. So for them, they don't believe Allah is the knower, Allah is the hearer, and all of that. So they don't believe in that. And when they say that they don't believe in the attributes, they say if we believe in the attributes, it means we believe in more than one God. Because a God has to have what? No attributes. It's to be God. And that is when you say, for example, Allah, He is hearing, that means He hears like the human being, so you're worshipping another person. And that's what the Mu'tazila, they used to believe. Also the Mu'tazila, the thing that they distinguish themselves with is that they call Qadariyya. Qadariyya means that they say that Allah creates His own creates His own what? Actions. Qadariyya, they are saying Allah, that the person creates his own action. Because they say that the person, if he, for example, steals, if he steals, how can we say that Allah had made him to steal, and he's according to the will of Allah? Allah does not command you to do what? Evil. So they said, no, you create your own actions, nothing to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty. And that is what happened. So they say that human being creates his own action. So when you say human being creates his own action, what does that implicate? Come on, put your finger up. Don't be shy.
It means that they have control as towards the things that they do. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no control over their actions.
Nah.
That Allah creates evil. That Allah,
when they say human being creates his own action, what does that mean? Nah. There's a God, another God beside Allah. So there's another creator. That's why they call them Majus, the Magians. The Magians, they believe that the evil is created by the God of darkness, and the good is created by the light God. And that is why they say God creates the good, and you create what? The evil. So that's why they're called Majus, Majus al-Ummah. And the Mu'tazila are of two types. One who had denied totally the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there are kuffar, and there are the fewest people of them. The ones who don't know, for instance, they say Allah doesn't know what you're going to do now. So if I move the microphone, I surprised Allah now. He doesn't know what I'm going to do. Those are the ones who are kuffar. But most of the Mu'tazila, they believe Allah's got the knowledge, okay, but He does not create your own action. So it's like you have moved it now against the will of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that is, remember the story between the Bedouin man and one of their sheikhs, yeah? What is the story? Can anybody tell me what is the story regarding what? A stolen camel. When a person came to a person and he had his camel stolen, and he asked him, the sheikh, which is Mu'tazila, he told me, sheikh, well, my camel is stolen, can you just make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will return it back for me and find it for me? So this Mu'tazili sheikh, now he raised up his hand, he says, oh Allah, the camel of this man was stolen, and he did not will for it to be stolen. Oh Allah, return it back to the man. So the man left him. Why he left him? He said, why did you leave me? He said, well, your God is not powerful enough. If He willed for it not to be stolen, and it was stolen, how can He can powerful enough to will for it to return back? Do you understand that? It's just common sense. So if Allah did not will for it to be stolen, and it was stolen, that means your God is not powerful. He's got no power. He is not powerful enough. And we have as well another incident that took place between Abu Suhaib Basaam, which is one of the great Imams of Sunnah, and Abdul Al-Qadi, Abdul Jabbar Al-Hamadani, is one of the great Mu'tazili people who had, as soon as he came in, and there was a debate between the two, so he said, Subhana man tanazzaha an al-fahsha. He's teasing the person who is from Ahl Sunnah, the scholar, that is glorified be Allah, who's got nothing to do with evil. I mean, Allah does not create evil. Nothing to do with evil. So Subhana man tanazzaha an al-fahsha. Then he said, he's an answer, Subhana man la yakunu fi mulkihi illa ma yasha. Glorified be Allah, that is the one, nothing will take place in His dominion except for what He wills. So he said, Ayusha'u Rabbuna an yu'sa. So this Mu'tazili answered, does Allah will for Himself to be disobeyed? So he said, Ayu'sa Rabbuna qahra. The scholar, the Salafi scholar, he said to him, would Allah be disobeyed whether He likes it or not? Then he said, well, tell me now, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed for me to be misguided, did He do good or bad for me? So the Salafi scholar, he said to him, well, if He deprived you from something that belongs to you, He's done back to you. But He deprived you from something that He owns it, then He's got His business, whether He gives it to you or not. That means the garden belongs to whom? To Allah. If He deprives you from it, He's not done you well because it's His own. If He gives it to you, يَخْتَصُّ بِرَحْمَتِهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. He's given the rahmah, that is the fadl of hidayah, to whom He wills. So that is an answer from the Salafi to the Mu'tazila. The Mu'tazila, as I said, one of the scholars, one of the sects, which are definitely makes up one of the sects that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, سَتَفْتَرِقُ أُمَّتِي عَلَى 73 فِرْقَةٍ. My ummah will differ upon 73 groups. So Mu'tazila is, we call them Qadariyah as well, those Mu'tazila. And by the way, there are still people holding yet the flag of the Mu'tazila, which is the old ones, still. But definitely there are groups that emerged with different names. They do have in their creed some of the Mu'tazila creeds. Do you understand that? For example, now we have Shia al-Rawafid. Al-Rawafid. Some of the Rawafid creed is being imported from where? From the Mu'tazila. So the Mu'tazila creed still surviving and still is there. Then he says, Al-Asha'ira al-Maturidiyya. Asha'ira al-Maturidiyya, they are contemporary to each other. Asha'ira al-Maturidiyya. We're going to talk about, first of all, Al-Maturidiyya. Maturidiyya are less than the Asha'ira in maybe number, but the Asha'ira now, they call themselves Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Okay, Al-Maturidiyya, they are the people who are the followers of Abu Mansur, sorry about that, Al-Maturidi. They are the ones who affirm the names and affirm the attributes, but in a way which differs from the Salaf way. Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he says that the scholars are upon consensus not to make takfir upon those groups like Maturidiyya and Mu'tazila and Ash'ari. Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, most of the Hanafi followers, not Abu Hanifa, the Hanafi followers are of that Maturidiyya. So they believe in the Maturidiyya. And if you heard about the Dawabandis, which I'm not going to go into them now, Dawabandis, you know the Dawabandis? The Pakistanis or the Asian community are of categories like this. Brainways, which is the largest community, Brainways. Then after that, the Dawandis, and then the Ahl al-Hadith, and then the fourth sect, which is everybody. The Brailwis, okay, which are Brailwis that are hardcore Sufis. And the Dawandis, still Sufis, but they're not as hardcore as the Brailwis, because the Brailwis called the Dawandis are to be Wahhabis, by the way. And then Ahl al-Hadith, which are the Salafis. And then the rest of the people. Whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim, the rest of the people. Now the Dawandis, they are followers of Aqidah al-Maturidiyya. One of these things that we have taught you in our class, which is Usul al-Sunnah, they are from al-Murji'ah. You remember? Murji'ah al-Fuqaha. Remember that? Because all the Hanafi followers, most of them, they are from the Murji'ah al-Fuqaha. Murji'ah al-Fuqaha, they don't include the amal. The action is to be part of the what? Of the iman. They say iman, okay, it is in the heart, and the saying of the tongue, but they don't put into that as well the actions, the acts of that is amal. Right, and then finally are the Ash'ari, which I'm going to be dealing with them a bit more. Ash'ari, they are the followers of Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari. Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari, we're going to talk about him in a minute. Those people, they, Ash'ari, confirm the attributes of Allah and the names of Allah, but not all the attributes. 7 attributes. And they call them the 7 attributes which is the intellect would accept. So if the intellect does not accept them, it will not be an attribute. So for example, Allah descends, that does not, the intellect will not accept it, because that means Allah descends, He's going to cause a vacant sort of space and go down. So that's not to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what they say. So He does not descend. But, for example, those 7 attributes that they affirm: life, knowledge, power, which is the might, irada, which is the will, al-sam', that is the hearing, al-basar, which is the seeing, and al-kalam, which is the speech. Even the kalam is not really the kalam that the Ahl Sunnah, okay, is affirming the kalam. I'm going to come to it in a minute, inshallah. Right, so the way they affirm their attributes is different from the way that how the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the Salaf, affirm their attributes. And I want to say Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah means Salafis. Because Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, according to some people, they think it's what Ash'ari. So be careful of that. And that is why we say As-Salafiyun or Ahlul Hadith. Why? Because Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah became a title underneath which everybody comes in except for the Shia. If you understand, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Sufi comes underneath as well. No. Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari, he was a Mu'tazili. He was from the I'tizal. And he had known the falsehood of his madhab, which is I'tizal, the ones we said, remember? Manzila bayn al-manzil. Remember, the Mu'tazila, they've come up with something none of the groups came up with. That is, when the person does a major sin, he is in this dunya not to be treated as a Muslim, nor as to be a kafir. I don't know what. Okay, and then when he dies, he has to die as a kafir, so he has to be buried in a non-Muslim graveyard or in a special graveyard. Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari, he was, as I said, Mu'tazila. How did he know that his i'tizal is wrong? You know that the Mu'tazila, they say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got nothing to do with the action of the human being. Action of yours, you are created of it. That's what the Mu'tazila say. And that you have no will whatsoever as a person. You have no will whatsoever. Okay, so what is the reason that this person, Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari, had left him? It's actually because of his sheikh. One day he was with his sheikh and he asked him a question. If there are 3 brothers died, one died when he was an adult, but he was dying as an evil person. Where is he going to be? He said, in the hellfire. Another one died as an adult, but he died as a righteous person. Where is he going to be? He said, he's in paradise. His teacher has answered him. Third person died as a child. He did not reach his what? Adulthood. Where is he going to be there? He said, there will be no iqab, no punishment, no reward. So not in paradise, not in the hellfire. Okay, so he said, Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari, alright, so what about that boy? He told, oh God, why didn't you let me to grow up and become an adult and do like my brother who had done righteous I could have gone to paradise. Instead of now, I'm not in paradise, not in the hellfire. So the answer of the Ustad, the teacher, he said to him, which is the Mu'tazili, he said to him, well, God answered him, well, I know what you're going to do. You were going to be doing bad. So I left you to die as a child, because if you grew up, you would have done what? Bad. So it's better for you to die as a child. So here Abu Hasan said, okay, but what about the third person, who the first person who died as an evil doer, was an adult? He's now at the bottom of the hellfire shouting, oh God, why did you make me to grow up until I became an adult? You should have made me to die as a child. Then I would have never been in the hellfire. I could have been just, no punishment, no reward. So as soon as he said that, the teacher couldn't really have an answer. And as soon as he had no answer, Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari had straight away left this Mu'tazila madhab. And what he did is actually, he went in the pulpit in the masjid, and he's taken in the day of Jumu'ah on the pulpit. He said, I am declaring that I got nothing to do with the i'tizal. And he had taken off his clothes, just like I'm taking off my clothes here, which is my garment. I am as well taking the i'tizal. But when he taken the i'tizal, he went to another madhab, which is the madhab al-Kullabiyya. This madhab al-Kullabiyya, Abdullah ibn Sa'id ibn Kullab, is the person who was he's becoming onto his madhab. The madhab al-Kullabiyya, they are the ones who are the Asha'ira these days. The ones who say that we affirm only 7 attributes. Abdullah ibn Sa'id ibn Kullab. Right, because he says that these attributes, the intellect would accept them. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given the favor upon Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari. He was guided and he left the Kullabi madhab and he went back to madhab al-Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, and he says, I say with whatever Imam Ahmad, Imam Ahl al-Sunnati wal Jama'ah, he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made istiwa ala al-arsh, and Allah has got a hand, and Allah has got a face, where the madhab al-Kullabi, they don't really give him as a hand, it's a power. The face is a rahmah, mercy. And he had mentioned this in his book Al-Ibanah an Usul al-Diyana, and also in his another book, which is Maqalat al-Islamiyyin wa Rasail al-Thagr, Maqalat al-Islamiyyin wa Ikhtilaf al-Musallin. And he had mentioned that, which the Asha'ira these days, they said, no, these 2 books, they don't belong to Imam Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari. Al-Asha'ira, they are at the moment, as I said, with the madhab of Ibn Kullab, they are fluctuating between Ahl al-Sunnati wal-i'tizal. We're going to see that inshallah. They are fluctuating between Ahl al-Sunnati wal-i'tizal. They are not one sometimes from Ahl al-Sunnah, sometimes with Ahl al-i'tizal. For example, in the Mas'alat al-Ru'ya, seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can anybody tell me what is the madhab of Mu'tazila regarding seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of Before I say the madhab of Mu'tazila, what is our madhab regarding seeing Allah? Hi, doctor.
Our madhab, seeing Allah in the day of resurrection, we will be able to see the Muslims.
We're going to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the resurrection. Can I ask you? We're going to see him with what? With your feeling or your eyes, which belong to your heads?
Eyes belonging to our head.
So you're going to see him with your eyes belonging to your head. Can anybody tell me, is Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah say that you could see Allah in reality before the day of resurrection? Put your finger up. Put your finger up and answer. Now, no, you can't. What about in vision? Abdul Qadir, isn't it? What about in vision? Coming to the class and not remembering is really a problem. Come on. Prophet ﷺ, where did he see him? Come on, anybody? Where did he see him in the vision? Which is the hadith? Hadith of what?
The hadith where he woke up late one morning.
What is that hadith called? Ikhtisam al-Mala' al-A'la. That's the hadith. The dispute amongst the highest inhabitants of paradise, inhabitants of heavens, that is, the angels. Ikhtisam al-Mala' al-A'la. So this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I saw my God, my Lord, in the best of form, best of images. You remember that? Surah, ahsan surah. Right? So we affirm seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right. Now, what does the Mu'tazila say, seeing Allah Azza wa Jalla? Do they see him or not? We have said that as well, brother. Mu'tazila, do they Mu'tazila say that we're going to be seeing Allah on the day of resurrection or not? No idea. Huh?
They say we don't want to see because they take the reference from the Quran verse.
Which is? Very good. Ahsant. Very good. That is, لا تدرك الأبصار. You remember that verse as well? That the absar will not encompass it. And we talked about that in details. Subhanallah, if you depend upon this, will fail. You have to write down and revise. So, this is what the Mu'tazila say, that Allah cannot be seen. Whether in this life, which we agree with them, or the hereafter, which we don't agree with them. What did the Ash'ari say? Now the Ash'ari, they said, like Ahlul Sunnah, that on the day of resurrection, we will be able to see Allah. But you know that we will be to see Allah, it means that you are affirming that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the what? Above the throne. Because how are you going to see him? Below the throne? You're going to see him what? Above the throne. So if it is the case, do they themselves affirm that Allah is above the throne? Shaykhs don't say that. And they, because of that, so they are like Ahl Sunnati, they say we say that yes, we are going to see Allah. But they are like the Mu'tazila in the way they say that there is no side, direction for seeing Allah. Do you understand that? There's no direction, because of the direction that means I'm going to see him in the direction, that means it's going to be al-ulu, sifat al-ulu, which is the what? The highness of Allah subhanahu, being above Allah azza wa jal. So from one side, they are like what? The Ahlul Sunnah. From the other side, like from the Mu'tazila. So they say, and I would say, they are even much worse than the Mu'tazila regarding this issue. Because the Mu'tazila, they say that Allah cannot be seen in the hereafter. It's wrong. But these people, they have said something that doesn't go with intellect. They say, no, you're going to see Allah. How? You're going to see Allah, but because it's going to be, they said with the eyes, that means every direction. They said, without a direction. Without a direction. So, I can't see Allah without a direction. So he's not up, not right, not left, not down. Well, how can I see him then? Tell me, how is it? So it does not go with the intellect. How are you going to see as a human being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Isn't it a direction? I'm asking. Isn't it a direction or not? You're going to do like this. I'm seeing Allah. Because that's what they say. If they see Allah, that means you're going to be feeling Allah's presence. So they are in this way, because they have said that, so then to say, we see Allah without a direction. How can you see Allah without a direction? It's for us, it's a direction. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above. Wherever you go, He's above. Above the throne. And that's why we say they are between, fluctuating Ahl Sunnati and the Mu'tazila. Also regarding the issue of the al-kalam, the speech. Who can tell me regarding the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran? We said the Quran is what? Regarding the Sunnah is غير مخلوق, it's not created. Al-Quran is what? The words of Allah. Is it with a sound or not? Is it with a sound? What about a harf, a letter? Harf. Oh, I talked about it. Yes? How can you make Quran a speech without sound and a letter? Isn't it? You have to have a sound and a letter. So they say, yeah, well, the Mu'tazila say that Allah does not speak. They did not affirm the attributes of Allah. The Mu'tazila, they were like, so the Musha'ira, we said, we are not like the Mu'tazila. We say Allah speaks. But they were just like the Mu'tazila said, He speaks, but without sound and a letter. So they say the sound and the letter is creation, makhluk. So Allah speaks. So how can Allah speak without a sound and a letter? I can't understand that. It doesn't really work. You have to have a sound, you have to have a letter. You remember with the argument that took place? Huh? So they say Allah had given the kalam al-nafsi. Nafsi, that means inside the self. So He's given it. So it is, this Quran is not the words, it's actually hikayah. It has been said that Allah had said it. Do you understand that? Because they don't want to attribute to Allah the sound and the letter, which will indulge in them saying, that means He's got teeth, He's got tongue, and He's got... That's what they think. And that is why Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, they have said that this person who makes ta'til, ultra, that means dysfunctioning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not do it until He made tashbih. Because He made an imitation in His mind, He said, well, this dysfunction, this what? Attribute. Because He's already made what? Tashbih in His mind. Because He made God looking like a human being. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got a leg, that means we have got, say Allah, if we've got a leg, that means Allah looks like a human being. And we explained to you regarding the leg of the table. Does the leg of the table look like my leg? We call this leg and we call it what? The leg of the table. But does that mean the leg of the table looks like my leg? It doesn't. And of course the parable for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that Allah Azza wa Jal has got the highest, the most beautiful names. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There's nothing like unto him. وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. And he is all hearing. They all see. So they are fluctuating between i'tizal and between. So we call them, that's why the scholars, they call them mukhannatha. What is mukhannatha? Mukhannatha, what do you call that in English? He's not a male or a female. What does that mean? Bisexual?
Hermaphrodite.
Hermaphrodite. Hermaphrodite. So he's not heterosexual, he's not homosexual. Hermaphrodite.
Male or female.
This person who doesn't know that he doesn't know he's got a sexual organ which belongs to the male or the female. What does he call that? We call him in Arabic khuntha.
If they actually have both.
So what is his name? Well, give me the name, the proper word for that. Yeah, hermaphrodite. That's what it says. Hermaphrodite. So because of that, they're fluctuating. We can't know them whether they are Sha'ira, they are from the Sunnah, or they are from the Mu'tazila, because we can't distinguish whether they got the male or organ or a female organ. So they call it mukhannatha. And we also call as well the Mu'tazila makhanithul falasifa. They as well from the philosophers. Mu'tazila came from the philosophy as well. Right. Go ahead.
All of these sects are considered by us as Muslims, and all of them are the ones who are addressed by the hadith when it says, translation of the meaning, Allah will inflict humiliation upon you.
So the only translation of the meaning is the Quran. This is the hadith of the Prophet. When the hadith says, it's not the Prophet saying this, the hadith says, go on.
Allah will inflict humiliation upon you and will not remove it until you return to your religion. So which interpretation of the religion do we have to return to? It is upon the understanding of the madhab, school of thought, of such and such, or all the other madhabs out there? Let us then just restrict ourselves momentarily.
And for the time being, just for this lecture, for this talk of his Sheikh, let's just restrict ourselves to the difference, yes?
To the difference between the four main madhabs. The madhabs which we say are from the madhabs of Ahl Sunnah.
Alright, write down now those, just a short biography for each of these madhab, which is called the main four madhab of Ahl Sunnah. There are more than madhab, four, but these are the major and well known and have their reputation and so many followers. But we have the madhab of Sufyan al-Thawri, which had died. Why? Because the followers of Sufyan al-Thawri, rahimahullah, was a great scholar, that they did not exist, or they did not really prevail such a man, and they were scattered all over. But other than those four, they weren't known. So we're going to talk about the main four madhab that this day that the people abide themselves to. And this is just to show you how the people differ in the interpretation of the religion, which ended up in different religions, which ended up in imposing humiliation upon us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First one, madhab Abu Hanifa. Abu Hanifa is called Al-Nu'man. Abu Hanifa Al-Nu'man. Born 80 after Hijrah. Hijrah is the migration date of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So born 80 after Hijrah. So he caught up with the followers. He caught up with what? With the generation of the followers after the companions. 80. And he died in the year 150, making living what? 70 years. From 80 after Hijrah until 150. So he's Al-Nu'man. His name is Al-Nu'man. Abu Hanifa is called Al-Nu'man ibn Thabit. He was in Iraq, the faqih of Iraq. And he was resurrected in Kufa, not far away from Baghdad.
Sorry, what do you mean by resurrected?
No, resurrected, sorry. He was resurrected. What am I talking about? He was educated and he was bred, and looked after, raised. That's what it is, raised actually, not resurrected. Raised in Kufa. And one of his scholars, which is known, a well-known scholar of his, that is Ata ibn Abi Rabah. He's one of the great scholars. Ata ibn Abi Rabah. That is a follower, he's known, Ata ibn Abi Rabah. And one of his great students, Abu Yusuf al-Qadi. Abu Yusuf al-Qadi, his name is Yaqub. He was a person, nothing to do with the dunya, zahid, wara', he had scrupulous, wara'. And Yazid ibn Hubayrah was a person, leader in that province, in Iraq, in the province of the Muslims. He said that he wanted him to be a wali. Wali means like a mayor in Iraq, like a prince of Iraq. And this was in the days of Marwan. So he wanted to be a leader, a prince in Iraq. No, sorry about that. Yazid ibn Hubayrah, who was the prince of Iraq, he wanted him to be a person who is holding the judge, as to be a judge in the province there. And also Al-Mansur al-Abbasi, who was a Khalifa, he wanted him to be a judge, but he refused to both of them. And he said, I've got nothing to do with being a judge. And because of that, Al-Mansur, he made an oath upon him that he should be a judge. He said, no, I'm going to make an oath against that oath. He said, Wallahi, I'm going to be a judge. Al-Mansur had imprisoned him until he died.
So, you know, is it Abu Yusuf they wanted to be a judge, or Abu Hanifa they wanted to be a judge?
Both of them, they wanted Yazid, he wanted to be a judge, and we said as well, Khalifa Abu Mansur, he wanted to be a judge. Can we just, if you are really not clear? They wanted Abu Hanifa, yes. We're talking about Abu Hanifa. Okay, so Yazid ibn Hubayrah was the leader of Iraq, wanted to be a judge. And also Al-Mansur, he wanted him to be a judge, but Abu Hanifa made an oath not to be a judge, and that is why he was imprisoned. And it was said that he was killed by the poison. And it was said as well that he died while he was praying. He was a scholar in so many things. And he was the first person to lay down the fiqh, okay, you could say exploration, to explore in the fiqh, all these masail. So all the scholars that came after him, like Imam Malik and Imam Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad, they have used his usul. So he laid down, you could say, this sort of fiqh. As his aqidah regarding everything to do with the sifat, with the asma, aqidah tawheed, aqidah al-rububiyyah, all of that to be Salafi. Right, this is a short biography of Abu Hanifa. Most of the people who follow Abu Hanifa now, they are from the beyond the rivers, which is like the Asians, like Indians and Pakistanis, and beyond the river, it's called, where the Iraqi river, the Dijla and Furat, beyond that river, all of those, that area is where his madhab is spread. Imam Malik ibn Anas, rahimahullah, he was born year 93, that's about 13 years younger than Abu Hanifa, died in the year 179 after Hijra, making him an age of 86. 179 after Hijra. He's called Malik ibn Anas ibn Malik. By the way, he's not the son of Malik, rahimahullah. It's Anas ibn Malik. This is his grandfather, is called Abu Amir. He's one of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's one of the great scholars, Imam Malik. And just to cut it short, to make it really short biography, he was Imam in the Hadith. He had taken his knowledge from one of the great sheikhs called Nafi'. Nafi', he is, remember, the slave of Abdullah ibn Umar. Not Umar, Abdullah ibn Umar. And one of the great students of his is Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri. Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri. He was a great man, as I said. He was all the time, when he makes fatwa, he makes it on the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And he was always giving a great weight for the amal ahl Medina, that is the what Ahl al-Madinah used to do. So he used to give them a great weight. So Ahl al-Madinah used to do that, so that means we take it as a proof to say this matter is so and so, and it's supposed to be the verdict, supposed to be so and so. So Ma'abad Ahl al-Madinah. He was carried to Ja'far ibn Sulaiman al-Abbasi, and he was the head of the Medina, which is the mayor of the Medina, and he had whipped him 70 lashes. The reason he whipped him for 70 lashes, the story says that they wanted him, well actually it was a political thing, political issue. They wanted the people to make a pledge to say that this pledge that is to, even you're forced to do the pledge for the sake of supporting the revolution. So whether you like it or not, so they have to say, so you have to make this pledge by doing the following, to make an oath, but بالطلاق, علي الطلاق. That means I will be divorced if I don't, take this pledge. So this oath now jeopardizes his family. So Imam Malik rahimahullah, he said that talaq, which is being done under compulsion, does not take place. Now it has nothing to do with the pledge, it's to do with the talaq. So because of that, they said to him, no, we don't want you to make fatwa like this, because this one, politically, will affect these people, and they start now making the oath, and they know at the end of the day that they're going to be compelled to what? To divorce their wives. Do you understand that? So it's a political issue. So he refused to go ahead and abide with what they wanted him to do and say, but he stayed because he was depending upon the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. رُفِعَ عَنْ أُمَّةِ الْخَطَأ وَالنِّسْيَانُ وَمَا اسْتُكْرِهُ عَلَيْهِ. That is, my ummah will not be accounted for khata, mistake, nisyan, forgot, and they're being compelled to do it under compulsion. Because of that, if they made a divorce under compulsion, it will not take place. Because of that, he did not go back onto his fatwa. They have lashed him as well and put him in prison. Rahimahullah. And he was lashed. They say now, and because of the lashes, he one day came back and he put his hand, when he prayed, he couldn't put the right on the left. So he was doing like this. If it was true, that wasn't because it is the sunnah, isn't it? It's because he couldn't put the right on the left, because he was lashed, as I said, 70 lashes. Imam Malik was asked about those who are Khawarij. Those are the ones who goes against the leader. What is your opinion regarding this? These people go against the leader. He said, well, it is permissible to fight them if they made a coup against a Khalifa who is like Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Look at this political sort of answer. Umar ibn Aziz is a great Khalifa. So if they made a coup against such person, we should fight these people who are making a coup. So they said to him, what about if this Khalifa is not like him? They want him not to give an answer. Because those people at that time, they were not like Umar ibn Aziz. They are very bad. So what about if he's not like Umar ibn Aziz? He said, well, we don't get involved. Let them, get revenge from one another. This is dhalim with dhalim. Oppressor with an oppressor. Let them do whatever they want. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will get revenge from both of them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will actually destroy both of them. Allah azza wa jal will make justice by taking the punishment of both of these groups. Now, this is to show you that Imam Malik rahimahullah is a follower of the Salaf in all his aqidah. He was Salafi rahimahullah. And when as well Khalifa al-Mansur met him in the year 163 in the Hajj. It was in the Hajj, and he had actually gathered with him in Mina, and he had apologized to him. And he asked him to write everything from his knowledge into books. And he gave him as well as prizes to help him with that. And he said to him, when you write your books, keep away from Abdullah ibn Umar's, sort of shada'id means the harsher opinion, if you understand me. So Abdullah ibn Umar, he would take, for example, if there's two things, he would take what? The harder one. So the hard things of Abdullah ibn Umar, and keep away from the concessions of Ibn Abbas, and those odd matters from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and go to the ones which are the middle matters, the ones which are just matters. And he asked as well for 1,000 dinar to be given to him and some clothes. So he made Muwatta Imam Malik, it's a great book of his, and Al-Mudawwana. All the people, most of the people who came to him and took his knowledge are from the Moroccans and the people who are from the the northern part of Africa. And that is why we find Malikiyun are where? Followers of Malikiyun? In Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia. Most of the North Africa, yes.
Where was Imam Malik born?
In Medina. No. And he died in Medina, rahimahullah, after reaching the age 86 years. Right, Imam Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i. Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i was born the year 150 after Hijrah. 150 after Hijrah. So it's about 67 years after what? Imam Malik's birth. And he died 204. So making him only 54 years he lived. 204 after Hijrah. He was born in Gaza, part of Palestine. But his father from Mecca, but he took him to Gaza, and he stayed in Gaza for 2 years. So he was born in Gaza. Gaza, you know Gaza. Gaza, they call it. He memorized the Quran when he was 7 years old. And he as well went to the Bedouins and he learned the Arabic posh language, which is a good Fusha, good posh Fusha language, proper language. And he had memorized lots of poetry. Just to make it cut as well short sort of biography about him, he left to Yemen, and he as well was in Yemen. He was making a job to Mus'ab ibn Abdullah al-Qurashi, who was the judge there. But the Yemen was full of Shia. And the Khalifa at that time was Harun Rashid. So he asked for those people who were accused to had taken the madhab of the Shia. One of them was Imam Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i. He was carried to Harun Rashid, being accused as that he made the Shia. But actually when he listened to him, and he liked him, and he had commanded for his release, and that was the year 184 after Hijrah, when he was 34 years old. Shafi'i, he was in Iraq. He had made a contact with one of the students of Imam Malik, that is Muhammad ibn al-Hasan. Sorry, the student of Abu Hanifa. Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, student of Hanifa. Hasan al-Shaybani, yes. And also he had taken from the books there. Then he went back to Mecca, as well to Baghdad, and he met Imam Ahmad. Imam Ahmad took from him. And that is why one of the sayings of Imam Shafi'i, when Imam Ahmad used to come to his class, "Oh Imam Ahmad, you travel more than us. If you have a hadith which came from Egypt, from Iraq, or from Yemen, please tell us about the hadith, so you can make fatwa according to that hadith." He had made this book called Shafi'i called the mother. And he made a Risala, which is the great booklet in Usul. His madhab was, and he was traveled, of course, to Egypt. He said that when he made the Kitab al he made it in Egypt. And his madhab was now at the moment spread into Egypt, into the Middle East. Most of them are followers of the Shafi'i madhab. The last Imam, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he was born 164 after Hijrah, which is 14 years after the birth of Imam Shafi'i. Died in the year 241 after Hijrah. So I makes him what? How many? So 77. He lived for 77 years. Ahmad ibn Hanbal al-Baghdadi, from Baghdad. His origin is from Marw, which is, Marw is like the southern of Russia. That place. He went to Kufa and Basra and Sham and Hijaz and Yemen, and he made his well-known book, Musnad al-Imam Ahmad. Contains a lot of hadith, 27,000. Numbering altogether 42, but there's repetition of that, 27,000 hadiths. And he's known because we have talked about his biography. If you remember, it was on the Al-Ma'mun when he heard about him that he's saying the Quran is not makhluq. He said Quran is not makhluq because the Imam, he says Quran what? Makhluq. The Imam Al-Ma'mun says Quran makhluq. He says Al-Quran not makhluq, not created. So he asked for him to come, and he was carried to him, and he made an oath, a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he doesn't to see him. So he died Al-Ma'mun before he saw him, he reached him. Then Al-Mu'tasim took over. Al-Mu'tasim, he put him in prison, and he as well tortured him, if you remember, but he stayed firm. And then at the time of Al-Wathiq, which is the other Khalifa next to him, Al-Wathiq, he did not imprison him, he released him, but he told him to isolate the people, not to give fatwa to anybody. And then until Al-Mutawakkil came. Al-Mutawakkil, and his time, Sunnah got revived, and the Quran became, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From his books as well, Al-Nasikh wal-Mansukh. These are the four Imams. Imam Ahmad's madhab now at the moment is spread is where? In the Arabian Peninsula. The followers of Imam Ahmad, in terms of normal people, they are the ones who could say less than the others. Less than the others. I would say the number-wise, the ones who say we are Hanafis are the ones who are the most. Hanafis, and then the Shafi'is, and then the Malikis, and then I would say the Hanbalis. But as an Ahl Sunnah, Ahl Hadith, all of them, they could be followers of all these great Imams. Because our Imams are the Imams of Sunnah, all of them, but especially Imam Ahmad Rahimah. Right, going back, so he says here, let's see what type of religion we're going to go back to. Is it the religion which is interpreted by the Hanaf, or the Malikiyah, or the Shafi'iyah, or the Hanbaliyah? That's what he meant. Now, so he said, which religion?
Which interpretation of the religion is it then? That is the cure that will lift the humiliation from us. For if we return to any of the madahib, we will find that there exists several issues, or 10 issues, or dozens of issues which conflict with the Sunnah, not to mention that some of these issues also conflict with the Quran.
So they conflict with the Quran and the Sunnah. We're going to see some example of that. So some of these issues which are still in the madhab, and the people, because they are, as I said, followers of the madhab, for the number of reasons, because they were born in such an area, being told by their family to such madhab, and they've been warned against the other madhab, and they believe that those holders of the madhab are to be infallible, mistakeless. So there are some of those issues in dozens of matters in the madhab that would contradict the Sunnah and would contradict even the Book of Allah. Now,
because of this, I believe that any reformation by the callers to Islam and those who pursue the establishment of the Islamic State.
Again, because there's some mistakes here. Go again.
Because of this, I believe that any reformation by the callers to Islam and those who pursue the establishment of the Islamic State.
No, I see that the reformation that the call of Islam must do it. So again,
I believe that any reformation by the callers to Islam,
reformation that the callers of Islam must do, the callers of Islam must do.
I believe that any reformation by the callers to the callers to Islam must do.
No. I didn't say that. Okay. I believe that the reformation that they should take place, that the callers of Islam must do. Do you understand me? Must do. And those who are seekers to establish the Islam state with sincerity should do, because it's totally different from what he has said.
Has to be built on them being sincere.
No. This is wrong. The whole sentence is wrong, because I read it before. he doesn't know what he's reading because he doesn't know what is the Arabic language there. And I know for a fact that this person is not an Arab. This sentence means like this. I see, because of this, that any reformation, any islah, means to rectify the situation, that the callers to Islam should do, and those who are trying to build an Islamic state with sincerity must do, is that to go back to make themselves understand firstly, and make the ummah understand secondly, that the religion that should be going back to is the religion that the Prophet ﷺ had brought, which is totally different from what is there. If you read that sentence, if you read that there, it confuses you actually, it doesn't really give you any help. So I would say that the reformation that the Sheikh Albani says, which I believe, that the callers to Islam should do, and those who are after establishing an Islamic state sincerely must do, is that to go back to make first of all and foremost themselves to understand, and then after that make the ummah understand the religion that the Prophet ﷺ came with. And this religion cannot be going back to, from what I believe, which is a consensus among the scholars, that is by studying the book and the sunnah. So basically he's saying that if you want to go back to the correct religion that would remove this humility, is to what? To understand the religion according to the book and the sunnah, not to the madahib. Not to these madahib. That's what he means. Then he says, and the translation of which you could say here, he says, no doubt. This without a doubt. It's not without a doubt. It says, it means here, and that is why. It's not the word. That is why. Read that from there, please. That is why. From here. That is why, and read. Instead of without a doubt, that is why
the Imams of the past, may Allah have mercy upon them, due to their excellence and the excellence which their Lord had given them.
Due to their excellence, and their excellence is from their Lord. And not the excellence of, because they haven't got their excellence of their own selves, have they? Due to their excellence, and their excellence is from their Lord. Do you understand the sentence now? It's not due to their excellence and the excellence given to them by their Lord, because they haven't got excellence from themselves, have they? Do you understand what I just said? Due to their excellence, and their excellence is from their Lord. Now,
warned their early followers who were upon knowledge from being attached to them, from following them blindly, and from placing them as the origin of the return to the religion. They warned them that if they did these things, then they would forget the origin of the Sharia, the Quran, and the Sunnah.
So they have warned their followers, the ones who are upon knowledge, from following them blindly, emulating them blindly, and to make them the origin in the religion. That means when there's a dispute, they go back. What did the Shafi'i say? What did Imam Malik say? What did Imam Abu Hanifa say? What did Imam Ahmad Muhammad say? Instead of going back, what? To the book and the Sunnah, which is the true origin of religion. What is the true origin of religion? It's the book and the Sunnah. But they, for example, in any matter they say, and they really try hard, what did Abu Hanifa say? And then when they reach that, that's it. Abu Hanifa said that, that's it. We're not going to go beyond this. But what about what did the Prophet ﷺ say? What did Allah say? Abu Hanifa should not be the target, should be what? The means to the target. Just like Imam Malik, and Imam Ahmad, and Imam Shafi'i. All of these are means, scholars. We don't say, oh, put them in the garbage. A'udhu billah. Because you have to respect your scholars, and you can't go to the religion without your scholars. But they are not themselves the target. The target is your Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. What did he say? But these people, they just stop at Abu Hanifa and then they say, are you more knowledgeable than Abu Hanifa? Are you more knowledgeable than Shafi'i? Are you more knowledgeable than... Subhanallah. Now.
None of you are in need that we quote for you the sayings of the Imams, which all revolve around the statement which is authenticated from all of them.
He's talking about to the audience, the audience that are knowledgeable, looks like it. The ones who are listening to the Shaykh. I said, none of you are in need in need of such statement from the Imam to show you, because all of you know it, that these Imams, these great Imams, all of them say the following statement, that is,
when a hadith is authentic, then it is my madhab.
Madhab, it's my way. So this is my creed. My creed is what the hadith says. And that is Imam Shafi'i says, for example, one of the great sayings, and this is on the footnotes, and all of these quotations are from the book of Sheikh Albani, Sifat Salat al-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Refer to the introduction of it, it goes all of it in these details. Like one of the quotation of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, he says, if you see that my verdict regarding an issue in religion contradicts a hadith and I'm still alive, I haven't changed my verdict, that means you should know that my brains, my sanity is gone. I'm insane, I'm not sane anymore. I'm insane, I'm stupid, I've gone. How can I be different from the hadith, and the hadith says different from myself, and I'm still alive, I haven't changed it yet. That means accuse my brain, accuse my intellect, something wrong with me, don't follow me. This is how the Imams used to be. And Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he saw his student Abu Yusuf al-Qadi, Yaqub, he saw him writing. What are you writing? He said, whatever you say, Imam, I'm just writing it. So, we people, don't write from us. We say something today, we change it tomorrow. Or we say something tomorrow, we change it the day after. Means, be careful. Don't take me as a reference to the religion, to the origin of the religion. I'm not a reference. You could take me as a what? As a tool, but not as a reference, as in, what did Abu Hanifa say? Khalas, Abu Hanifa, I'm satisfied. And that is why I said to you, some of the people who are belonging to the Hanafi madhab, they said that if Isa alayhi salam is going to come and they're going to come, he's going to rule by the Hanafi madhab. He said he's going to rule by the Hanafi madhab, because they take Hanafi madhab as a religion. And that's why I said to you as well, there was a number of conflicts between these followers of the madhab, which are followers upon ignorance, not knowledge. Say Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi, or for example, Imam, for example, the Muhammad al-Hasan al-Shaybani, or for example, the Imam, all the followers of Imam, for example, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah, Ibn Muflih, all of those, we're not talking about them, but those ignorant. So they said, for example, that a Shafi'iyah, we cannot marry her as a Hanafi. We definitely cannot give a Hanafiyah, a woman from the Hanafi method, to a Shafi'i, because they are disbelievers. But we treat them as people of the book, maybe no problem, we'll take their women as a Shafi'i. So they are not just madhab, they are what? Religions. And that is why we have in the books as well, one person who was from the followers of the Malikis, where they move their fingers, when they say the Shahwat, went to beyond the river where the Ahnaf reside there, and in their prayer there, he was moving his finger. And the Hanafis, if you move their finger 3 times, your prayer is what? Is invalid. So he kept moving, and he was warned against it until his finger was either chopped off or broken, dislocated, because they would not tolerate such a thing. Those people as well, you find in their books, you could just read one book, was called Maraq al-Falah. Maraq al-Falah, in it is a book Hanafi. You find in it lots of things that you can't accept it upon the Muslim to do. That if a dog falls into the well and it was dead, then if it's dead, take it out. Either you fertilize the land with it, or you give it to a Shafi'i follower. A Shafi'i follower will eat some sort of such food, a carrion, which is that a dog that died in a well. So all of these we should really remove them from the books. We should remove them from the hearts. That's not the religion that the Prophet ﷺ said, until you go back to your religion, then this humiliation will be removed. Now, read for all of this, please.
The sayings of the Imams with respect to following the Sunnah and rejecting their own statements which contradict the Sunnah.
No.
Imam Abu Hanifa, Nu'man,
This is, by the way, from the translator. No.
may Allah have mercy on him, said, when a hadith is authentic, then it is my madhab.
It's exactly the same as Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, and Imam Anas. All of them. Malik and Anas. No.
He also said, it is not permitted for anyone to accept our saying when he does not know where we took it from.
No.
He also said, if I say a statement which opposes the Book of Allah, the Most High, and a report of the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then abandon my statement. Imam Malik ibn Anas, may Allah have mercy on him, said, "Indeed, I am only but a man. I make mistakes, and I am correct. So look into my opinion, and everything which corresponds to the book and the sunnah, then accept it. And everything which does not correspond to the book and the sunnah, then abandon it." He also said, "There is not anyone after the Prophet ﷺ, except that his saying can be taken or abandoned, except for the Prophet ﷺ."
And even narration, except for the person who was in that grave. When he was pointing to the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, remember he was the Imam of Dar al-Hijra, Imam Medina. He's the Mufti of the Medina. لا يفتي ومالك في المدينة. لا يفتات. There will be no fatwa taken from anybody while Malik is what? Medina is most knowledgeable. So he was pointing to the grave. Everybody can be taken from his words or not, regardless who he is. You could leave and you could take, except for the person who is the owner of that grave. That is the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. That man, only. So even Abu Bakr and Umar, you could leave from their sayings and you could take. But not the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, what he said as well.
He also, that's it. Imam Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i.
Now, what did he say?
"When a hadith is authentic, then it is my madhab."
Which is the same. Now,
He also said, "If you see me saying a statement, and that which is in opposition to it has been authenticated from the Prophet ﷺ, then know that indeed my intellect has departed." He also said, "In everything I have said, and there was something which was authentic from the Prophet ﷺ in opposition to my statement, then the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ comes first. So do not blind follow me." Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal.
there's another one as well which is well known. فَاضْرِبُوا بِقَوْلِي عَرْضَ الْحَقِّ. That is, hit my saying with the wall, make it bounce to the wall. Because my saying is nothing to compare to the saying of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And coming down to the last Imam, Imam Ahmad.
"Do not blind follow me, and do not blind follow Malik or Shafi or Al-Awza'i
Awza'i, yes, great scholar.
or Athawri, and take from where they take from. And he also said, "Whosoever rejects a hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then he is on the brink of destruction."
Allah. Now, finished? All the sayings?
Yeah.
Okay. All the sayings? Yes.
No.
Go.
Thus, this statement is sufficient for us now. It is a proof that every Imam from those Imams advised himself, advised his Ummah, and advised his followers by ordering them to return to the hadith if differed from his ijtihad or his opinion.
Ijtihad, what is ijtihad?
See glossary.
Okay, ijtihad is the matter which is not being seen in a book or in a sunnah. There's no text to deal with it. And like for example regarding the cigarettes, it's not at the time of the book, the sunnah. So a person makes ijtihad regarding the principles of the sharia. He would arrive to a verdict regarding this issue by using either analogy, qiyas, or using other way of doing it, and he would reach to a verdict regarding this issue. This ijtihad is still going on until today because it's a gate which has not been closed like these people closed at the 4th century, they say. Ijtihad is still open because the matters are still being renewed. So the mujtahid, the scholar, can make ijtihad according to his knowledge. And the mujtahid has to be, in that matter, is a person who had collected all the information, and he has to know his usul before he makes ijtihad. But it doesn't mean that you have to have mujtahid, he has to have knowledge in every single details of the religion. We call it mujtahid mutlaq. The mujtahid. But you could have mujtahid in a specific matter because he had studied that matter from all the angles and he knows the language, he knows the principles and so on and so forth. Now,
this therefore opens the way, even if it be by way of blind following the Imams, for a return to the Quran and Sunnah.
so even in the name, not by the way, no. No, but this is not right from translation. Read it again.
This therefore opens the way, even if it be by way of blind following.
How can it be by way of following? It will be retained in the Book of Sunnah. Does it work like this? That's not right. Do you know why? It's actually in the name, not by the way, by follow, properly, but in the name. حتى باسم التقليد. Even under the name of blind following. Okay, even under the name of blind following, but it's not actually blind following, because blind following is not. Okay, even under the name of blind following to the Imams, yes.
Even if it be under the name of blind following, yes.
Imams is for
a return to the Quran and Sunnah.
It will open the way for a return to the Quran and Sunnah. Now, let's go an example, and we'll stop.
So we will mention some of the examples which conflict with the Sunnah, which are still present in our books, which are taught in all the schools of Sharia and colleges, and that which resembles them. The first example is from one of the Islamic madhabs, and it is of the worshipper who begins his prayer by letting his hands fall by the side and not placing them on the chest.
Have you got a translated note, which is Madhab al-Maliki?
As is the case of those who ascribe themselves to the madhab of Imam Malik.
So it's Maliki madhab. So the Maliki madhab, this is because we are restricting ourselves to the differences amongst the madhab. But as for other than the madhab, they have the Shia. Rafida, Shia, do like this. But we are restricting ourselves to the differences amongst the four main madhab. We're not talking about now the Mu'tazila, we're not talking about, for example, Shia, we're not talking about that. Right. So here he says that we find that these madhab, that they, for example, a person comes to the prayer, he would put his hand on his sides and he does not grab his left with his right. Now.
And why is this so?
So why is it?
Because the madhab says so.
It's because of the madhab. That's why he's doing it.
And this is whilst all of the scholars of hadith have endeavoured to bring a single hadith, even if it be weak, rather even if it be fabricated.
There's not even a fabricated hadith. Not just weak, a fabricated hadith now.
That the Messenger ﷺ did not place his right hand on his left when he stood up to pray. However, it does not exist. So is this Islam?
Do you understand that? We're not talking about this issue whether it is big or small. We're talking about that is how did they arrive to such thing? This is religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not talking about, it's not a matter of aqidah, is it? It's to do with just how to place your hand right on the left. These people, they say like this. And of course, not to say, for example, people like say like this, some of them in the awra, some of them on the navel, some of them above the navel, and some of them even your necks. Yeah? And so you find the people praying, one person putting like this, or one person putting like this, or one person like this, one person like that, one person like this, one person like this. Have you seen them?
Yeah.
So imagine we have one row here of Muslims, they're praying one to one God, to one Qibla, after one hand behind one Imam, and each one doing, are they united? They're not. They're not united in the bodies, not to say in the hearts. They're not united in the way that we look at them. They're not united. And that is because of, there is no unity in the hearts, because of their way of extracting and understanding or interpreting the religion is different. So this is what we call about, is to have one source of interpretation to the religion. One source of interpretation. Because we want to know what is the correct one. Is this one? So yes, we could be, for example, we have ikhtilaf, but this ikhtilaf we want to understand what is the fiqh of ikhtilaf here. Why did you do like this? Because of the madhab. Or because you've seen your mother, or your father, or your sheikh, or your whatever. It's not because you have reached this according to the knowledge. Do you understand that? So we need, I'm not talking about even the normal people. I'm talking about the one who are the drivers of the masses. The leaders of the masses. These are the ones. Or the sheikhs or the imams, why they're not making an effort. As soon as you have, this is a Hanafi masjid, they will employ a Hanafi imam. And that imam, okay, he has to be Hanafi. So if this imam had studied a bit more and then he realized, like one of them, I know him for a fact, that raising up the hands after the prayer straight away is a bid'ah. If he doesn't do it, what's going to happen to him? Checked out. I talked to that person. So, do you believe in this? He said, no, I don't believe in this. So why did you do it? He said, I just do it because they're going to chuck him out. He said, because of money. He said, no, it's not because of money. He said, I just made a balance here. Either they'll be chucked out, and then there will be no circles for the Salafis. He's undercover Salafi. There will be no circles for the Salafis. Or that's it. Or I'll be, even the mosque belongs to his uncle. His uncle he built it. But his uncle would not care if he does not, make this dua. He will chuck him out and bring somebody else. For the sake of the madhab. Remember what the father of Sheikh Albani, I said, you've got your religion and I've got my religion. It's a religion. Got your own lakum dinukum waliya din. That's it, a religion. I told you not to go to another circle. I told you not to go to the hadith. Stick with the Hanafi. That's how it is. So this is what happened. And I said, well, bearing in mind the consequences and weighing up the disadvantage with the advantage, I would say what you're doing inshallah is correct. Jazakallah khairan. I could go there and teach there in his mosque. In the basement, not in front of the people. In the basement, I can't really declare. Because then he will be open. So this person, subhanAllah musta'an, he made it short anyway. So he goes, subhanAllah, and then he finishes. Just for the sake of not to be chucked out. Too quick dua. Now, go ahead.
I know that some of you will then say, this is from the subsidiary matters. Indeed, some of them will even become careless with their utterance and say, this is from the insignificant matters. I believe that everything that the Messenger of Allah came with...
Insignificant? Not even significant. Insignificant and not worthwhile. Tafi means insignificant and not worth even bothering about. Imagine if I'm talking to you and you speak and you say, whatever you just said is not even worthwhile. Would you be upset or not? Maybe you would be enraged so much that you were going to smack me. What you're saying is rubbish. That's what I say, you mean rubbish. Insignificant. Not insignificant, even worth nothing. Not even worth for me to just listen to it. So how about if you say in the religion of Allah, there is something insignificant, not even worth listening to? What are you saying? A word that could almost, break the heavens and earth. This word that you say, that in the religion of Allah there's something which is, it's nothing, it's not even worth mentioning. You're talking about putting the hands in here. It doesn't matter, brother. Even you put your hands in there. It's a religion from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a way that you're talking about your habits or rituals. It's a religion. Now,
I know that some of you will...
So I believe that everything
the Messenger of Allah came with,
whatever the Prophet ﷺ came up with is,
which has a connection to the religion and worship, then it is not from the insignificant matters.
And that's what we believe with the Shaykh. Now,
we believe that everything that the Messenger ﷺ came with, then it is obligatory that we adopt it firstly as the religion according to its strength in relation to the proofs of the Sharia.
Yeah.
If it is obligatory, then it is obligatory. And if it is recommended, then it is recommended. As for calling a matter insignificant or secondary, simply because it is recommended...
No, not secondary. Here, they call it qushur. Qushur means, the skin. There's the skin and there's the pulp, isn't it, inside? No, the skin. It's very important to say the skin. Say qushur. So you're not talking about the pulp inside the fruit. You're talking about what? The skin. The outline, yes. The skin. So this is, you're not talking about the matter. You're talking about the borders of the matter. Skin. Because it's going to come here. The skin is related to the pulp now.
Because it is recommended, then this is not from the general Islamic etiquette for anything.
Etiquette and manners, not from the Islamic manners. You're not moral when you say like this. A'udhu billah. You say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words has got something insignificant. What are you talking about? Immannerable. Now, especially now.
This is more so due to the fact that it is not possible for us to preserve the primary matters except through the preservation of the secondary matters.
No, that's why he's not allowed. He says here that if we're going to be talking about in terms of intellect, if I want to argue with them in basis of intellect, not basis of Sharia, if they said this thing, qushur, just the skin of the matters, we know for a fact that the pulp cannot survive without the skin to preserve it. That really is totally different from the translation. So if you have no skin, the pulp will be exposed to the flies and decomposition and the decay and rotten. You understand? I'm talking about intellect-wise. I'm not going to argue. If I want to argue intellect-wise, I'll say this. But I'm not going to argue intellect-wise. I'm just saying to you that everything in religion, yes, we have something which is obligatory, something which is mustahab, but we can't say the mustahab which is recommended is insignificant. It's religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you do this mustahab, you get more reward. But you don't say it's insignificant, it's nothing, no. How the qushur, you can't call it qushur. Okay? No. Now, this simple example.
I say this if I wish to debate with them in a word.
That's what I said. This is a simple example.
So why have the Muslims persisted in acting upon this simple matter, letting the hands fall down by the side, whilst the hadith come one after another in all the books of the Sunnah, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam placed his hands on his chest.
He grabbed the left with his right and placing it on the chest. It is only
This is nothing more than blind following and stubbornness, and in a contradiction to the Imams in their saying, when a hadith is authentic,
that is, when the hadith is authentic,
then it is my madhab.
then it's my madhab. Now,
Indeed, this simple example will not please some of the people. So we will mention another example.
and stop here, another example inshallah for next week. So this example, he says, it's an example which is simple, but which is talking about that is putting the hand on the sides of the prayer instead of the right on the left. But why is it that the Muslims still doing it? And the whole hadith talks about, even Imam Malik, who are the Malikis attributed themselves to him, is in his Al-Mudawwana, in his Muwatta, in his book Al-Muwatta, the great book. It is in it that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hadith, he says, "Umirna ma'shar al-anbiya," we the prophets being commanded with three things. That is, umirna an nada'a aymanana ala shamayilina. We've been commanded to put the right on the left in the prayer. So all the prophets when they pray, to put the right on the left. So Imam Malik saying it in his Muwatta. And by the way, as according to Imam Bukhari, the most authentic hadith is the hadith that comes from Imam Malik. From Imam Malik, from his teacher Nafi', from his master Abdullah ibn Umar. This is the most authentic hadith. That is from Malik, from Nafi', from Abdullah ibn Umar, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the most authentic hadith. Can't have more authentic than this. So if it is the case, why these people call themselves Maliki? They still do this. It's because, if I do like this, if I do like this, I'm going to be Hanbali, Shafi, Hanafi. This is apostasy. I'm going to be sticking with my own tradition. No way. Brother, no. Madhab says like this. That's it. That's the problem with us. We're not really leaving this stubbornness. We're not leaving this blind following. We're not followers of Allah and His Messenger. We're truly followers of whims and desires, and that's why the humiliation is taking place. We're going to go to another example later on, inshallah, next week, and this example even worse. And how the people reinterpret such an example. They don't want to say that the Imam simply made a mistake. They can't really come to terms that Imam made a mistake. No, a'udhu billah, he's mistakeless. That's the problem with us. Now, I have a question, inshallah. I know that today we had a long session, but we have to move a bit because we have a lot to go now. Yeah, from this right hand side before we go to the left hand. Anybody from this question here? Okay, Jazakumullah khairan, you saved me a lot of time.
This is about salah. About salah.
Salah. We talked about salah anyway, so you could question.
Following an imam who is on a chair.
Following an imam who's in a chair.
Because he cannot stand up properly. If two person only praying, so two people praying, one imam, or if more than two, what is the sunnah?
If it's just only one person with the imam,
Yes.
next to him, he would be next to the chair. Chair to the feet.
Standing.
So the feet to feet, chair to the feet.
Standing.
This person who's in the chair, he stands up, doesn't he?
Yes.
Okay. So he stands up. Let's say he's leading the whole masjid. The person who is standing on the chair, sitting on the chair, he stands up, isn't he? Why he puts the chair? Because he can't make what? Can't make sujood, that's why. Because if he can't stand up, then we tell him to what? Sit on the floor. If you could make sujood, you have to stay what? On the floor. But only because you can't make what? You can't stand up. So the chair people, they think, oh, it's only just for, I can't stand up. No. This is for the person who cannot make sujood. So because his back or something, then it makes sense. But this person, because he stands up, we stand up with him. And when he is making ruku' or sujood in the chair, we don't bring chairs here. So the masjid say, okay, all of you, please have chairs because the imam has got a chair. No. And if he prays sitting down, then we have to pray all of us sitting down. I don't know, have you ever been to a prayer when sitting down, everybody? In a masjid. Well, in a private, I've been. In a privately, I have been. Where a person had led me while he was sitting down because he was ill, and I sat down with him. But, as in a masjid, I prayed only once in a masjid which is containing, I would say, more than 1,000 people. And there was a person who was leading us, was in a chair. And he was with the Sheikh Al-Halabi, Hafidhahullah, and he was leading us on the chair. He was standing up, and we sit on the chair. So we go down to the sujood while he's sitting what? On the chair. I have seen that. Even that imam did not say to somebody else to lead the prayer. According to the Ahnaf, they will not allow it. Hanafis do not allow a person who is ill to lead somebody who's healthy, or a person who is sitting down to lead somebody who can't stand up, according to their madhab. Now,
What prevents people from going to the original books?
by the way, from the right side. We should have finished.
I thought you might say middle.
Okay, middle side.
What prevents people from going to the original books of Abu Hanifa to understand his correct fiqh?
What prevents from the people from going back? That's a question should be put to them, but if you want my opinion, scholars had said it. It's the hawa. Hawa means desires. The person has something wrong with his heart. If you're talking about the general masses, maybe the people that don't know, maybe they don't have that much blame, except more than the people who are leading these people. Why isn't it these imams who knows the haqq? They don't study. You know, for example, the Maturidis or the Ahnaf, look at them, what do they study? They don't even go to another book except for the what? Hanafi madhab. It is, a'udhu billah, they consider it, this is to put a Shafi'i book or Hanbali book or whatever book, apart from the Hanafi book, in their study circles, no way. They will not even read it. So they say, you are Hanafi? Or Hanafi. You can't be Shafi'i. You Shafi'i can't be Hanafi. Look, subhanallah. It's like the Christians, when they talk to them, for example, be a Muslim. No, Christian says Christians, and Muslim says Muslims. That's how when they talk to the Christians, the Arab, say they give you this, sheep cannot become goat, and goat cannot become sheep. Sheep has to say sheep, and goat cannot say goat. So I'm a Christian, I have to say Christian. That's how they teach him, because they don't want him to argue. So just say you're a Christian. Even if you're convinced that you are batil and the haqq is in Islam, no, you can't be turning. You can't turn your religion. Stick to the same thing. Hanafi, you have to say a Hanafi. You can't be a Shafi'i. And if you reach that reading with Shafi'i, be careful here. You're changing your aqidah. And that's how it is. In some of the universities that we know, they are abiding by the Hanafis. No way they will teach you any other than the Hanafi books. And I know that for a fact. And their books are there and they will read it. So why just can this person add more, because we say that the person who's got on his scope is like this. It's not like that. He sees one direction. Exactly like the Hanafi and the Shafi'i. Doesn't want to say more. The person sees more, put the Shafi'i with the Hanafi, and all of them are scholars. No. Shafi'i. That's what we had 4 prayers for each prayer in the Haram. So it swims the heart. Now, This is, by the way, all our topic is regarding this issue. Why? Why we have humiliation? Why is it that these people are not reading? Why they're not really following the Haqq, the Kitab and the Sunnah? Why? تفضل. We're finished from the middle. We go to the left. So, inshallah, I'll finish now. Yalla.
Were there any famous students of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal?
Famous students of Imam Ahmad? So many students of Imam Ahmad. One of them is called Abu Bakr al-Marudi, or al-Mirwazi. He's a great student, and he was a student of Sheikh. And at the time of Sheikh Imam Ahmad, there were some teachers, and at the same time they were students who took from him. Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, for example. Okay? Ali ibn Madini, for example. So all these as well, sometimes his teacher, and he takes it, and then he becomes the teacher, the student becomes the teacher of the student. Like Imam Shafi'i and Imam Abu Ahmad. There's difference in age. But when Imam Ahmad gives the hadith of Shafi'i, he will say, حدثنا. And when he goes, حدثنا الثقة. Who is ثقة for him? Ahmad. حدثنا الثقة. ثقة means Ahmad. خلاص, he is the trustworthy. Now.
Regarding
Raising up the hands in the Takbir al-Ihram.
in a mosque in Kashmir, just against raising the hands, they quote a hadith. I don't know exactly how it is, but they say that Rasulullah said, "Stop raising your hands like that."
Like the horse pony.
Yeah, yes.
Pony the horse.
So regarding that hadith,
Right. This here, talking about the raising up of the hands. The Kashmir, the followers of the Hanafi madhab. And the followers of the Hanafi madhab, they say that you should not raise up the hands, okay? Because there's a hadith which says prohibition to raise up the hands. Otherwise, this raising up the hands would be looking like the ponytails. The ponytails go like this. But this is actually hadith. First of all, it is not like this. The hadith which is authentic is that the Prophet ﷺ, he's forbade that the person, when he makes in his prayer, for example, salutation. So he makes a salutation, he says, for example, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. He opens his hand. But raising up the hands, we have 10 companions. 10 companions had narrated the raising up of the hands. Abdullah ibn Umar, Wa'il ibn Hujr, lots of them. 10 companions. It's amazing, it doesn't stop me, amazingly, that the Hanafis, we have 10 companions raised up their hands in the Salah. They don't. When we have no companions except for Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and it's unauthentic, that is in this Salat al-Janazah, he does not raise up his hand. He raises up his hand, and most of the companions and most of the Prophet ﷺ, there is no raising up of the hands in Salat al-Janazah except in the Takbir al-Ihram. They raise up their hands in the second and the third, fourth takbir. Do you understand that? Where there is no proof, they raise up the hand, and there is a proof to raise up the hand, they don't raise up their hands. And the best one who had tackled this issue recently, from the scholars now, Sheikh Albani, Rahmه. Look at his book, under that raising up of the hands. Okay? And he would talk about those ahadith which are unauthentic, used by the Hanafis, to stop the person from raising up the hands. Okay? So he would mention there, and if you have the book with you, I will just give you the footnotes of that with Sheikh Albani. But in the footnotes, he talks about it in details. And he says, I can't remember, stop what amazes me. And if you want a refutation which is harsh one, go to Al-Muhalla to Ibn Hazm, you'll find what you want. Abu Muhammad, Rahimahullah, Ibn Hazm, Hazm is Hazm. They say that the tongue of Ibn Hazm and the sword of Al-Hajjaj, the same. Sharp tongue of Ibn Hazm and the sword of Al-Hajjaj, both of them, same.
just a tiny bit to add to that. They say that Rasulullah he did order for the hands to be raised, but then he forbid it later on. The ordering of the hands was
all the time, you have something like this, bring your proof. When you have nasikh or mansukh, do you understand me? الناسخ والمنسوخ, that is abrogated. You have to have, first of all, 50, okay, you said possibilities when you have two hadiths going against one another. That is to have 50 possibilities to reconcile before you come to the last conclusion, which is what? One is abrogated and one is what? The abrogator. You understand? So they have to reconcile between them. That's what, if there is. And you have to know the date of such a hadith. And this one is before that one. Do you understand? So the Hanafi person who had gone to such an... Abu Hanifa rahimahullah has got an excuse because he didn't have enough information. Didn't have enough narration from the hadith. I'm talking about these people who are these days, they did not look into the hadith of the other scholars. They did not. They just kept themselves to what? To Abu Hanifa. Abu Hanifa's information now is much, much more now we have. We have at the moment lots of things that Abu Hanifa didn't know about. So when it comes to the person who came to a conclusion with his mashallah following the haqq and he arrived at this conclusion, no problem. But we know for a fact that these people did not raise up their hands. It's not because they have arrived at through knowledge or through that this what you have just said. It's actually because of traditions, rituals. That's the problem. So we're not going to go into details why is it. I mean, this is not the session to talk about this issue, is it wrong or right. But if you look at it into the hadith, we have plenty of a hadith to say that the Prophet ﷺ raised up his hands, to say that he had said it at the beginning, and then later on he has forbade it. Where is your proof? Bring us your proof. Now, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك.